finger in their mouth. They spend more time figuring out how to get my finger out of their mouth than fighting with me. The other thing to keep in mind is flight zones. The eyes and the ears are the flight zone. So if you are in front of the flight zone and you want to bring her this way, she's not going to want to come towards me. She's going to go away from me. If you are behind the flight zone, she will want to go that direction. So it is key when you're trying to move animals, don't get in front and do the pull. You'll just hurt your back and wear yourself out. The other main way of moving livestock is, again, I'm holding the mouth, but backwards is usually a lot easier with most sheep than forwards. So just a couple little nods to the head, they get a little uncomfortable and they back up. So a lot of times, this is the easier method to move animals than trying to drag. So keep that in mind when you're getting involved with sheep. The hardest thing for people to learn when they do shearing school is how to put the sheep down. Most people are afraid that they will hurt the animal because obviously a neck jerk, we can all relate that that would probably be uncomfortable. But honestly, you will put the animal down before you hurt them. I've never known anybody that hurt an animal with the way they hurt. And normally people are not able to put the sheep down until they get kicked or stepped on. And then you're kind of channeling a little bit of frustration, and then they go right down. So you don't need to be frustrated to handle sheep, but you need to channel that firmness. Just put them down. They will be fine. And from this position is your best bet for doing all kinds of management stuff. Foot trimming, worming, vaccines. This is the position you need to learn. So I'm going to re-emphasize, belly wool has very little commercial value. You do not want to have it inadvertently get mixed in with your good body wool. How many of you thought she was going to be brown underneath? It is very normal for sheep to sun bleach, just like your hair gets lighter in the summer when you're at the beach. Same thing with sheep. If you actually do find a sheep that does not sun bleach, that's sort of a rare thing. But most sheep, if you buy them and they're black, will fade out to brown by the end of summer. And you can normally tell what color they are based on the hair on their face. So if it's black hair on the face, even though the wool is brown on the outside, it's black wool. So keep that in mind. You will see brown. It's called morit in sheep. There are morit sheep, and that wool will be brown underneath as well. So you can always tell black or brown based on the hair on the face of the animal. This girl's pretty fat. All of this is a life well lived. But when your body's scoring an animal, you're feeling the spine and the hip bones, and obviously she's perfect up here. But when you start to slide down, you're like, wait a minute, there's no ribs there. Keep an eye out that for your own animals. You want to try to avoid this as much as possible, as this will cause early onset arthritis in a lot of sheep. They'll have trouble with their front shoulders and whatnot, but she's still hanging in there. She's a good girl. So, for those of you who are interested in getting their own sheep, starting their own flocks, who want to do it themselves, which I'm going to assume is most of our demographic here. If you're paying somebody to shear your sheep, they're probably going to do it the way I just did it. If you want to attempt to shear yourself, you probably shouldn't start with this method. There are shearing schools in the region. A shearing school will teach you whether you love it or hate it. And they will teach you enough to be dangerous. But the guiding hand, it is actually really hard to learn on your own animals. That sort of emotional bond can really hold back your hand. So I encourage you, if you want to learn to do everything with your animals, try to get into a shearing school, learn on somebody else's sheep, connect with some local people who can help sort of guide you along that path. That'll be your best bet for success. The other way to shear is on a stand, and you've seen them at fairs. They're on a stand, they're eating. Honestly, stand shearing is a nightmare. Like, I couldn't even fathom stand shearing. They have control of their body, so they're going to do this the whole time. And it's really hard to get under the armpits and the head when they're doing this the whole time. But it is a perfectly acceptable way to shear. And I know a lot of people that shear that way. So I'm not going to put it down, but it is harder, it will take time. But there is still that bonding that goes on with your animal. So if you are sort of new beginner, that is a perfectly acceptable thing, but understand that your experience is not different than anybody else's. Shearing on a stand is a nightmare. So, do we have any other questions right now before I go into? Yes?
I know you don't do it, but if you cut them, how do you treat that?
So cuts. So it's just like shaving your legs, shaving your face. If you have never cut yourself while shaving your legs or shaving your face, you need to be a sheep shearer. I want to recruit you right now. We only want the best. But honestly, the lanolin, it is a homeopathic ingredient. It is an excellent, it's better than Neosporin. Little tiny things will heal up. You won't even notice that tomorrow. Like, I wouldn't stress about that. The biggest thing, like this time of year, you might get flies. A little bit of fly spray goes a long way. Larger cuts, which can happen. You are dealing with an animal that could weigh more than you, that could be very unhappy with this whole process. Larger cuts can sometimes require stitching or a vet's intervention. But I always like to stress to people, like, nobody ever goes out to shear sheep and say, I'm going to cut this animal, like, and it's going to be out, like, nobody does. Like, it's always traumatic for everybody involved. So just be aware that this is a dangerous thing. People get hurt all the time. Animals can get hurt. You know, making sure that your environment is safe, that you don't have nails hanging out of your wall, that when the sheep jumps back, that you're not going to run into something. You know, make sure your fences are safe. And when you're, you know, having the animals emptied out and calm when you're handling them will increase your chances of not cutting them when you're shearing. They will sit. There's so much more that you can, you know, work your way around it. But if they're fighting, a lot of times it just gets to the point where you're like, I just got to get this animal done before it dies. So, you know, if you do hire somebody and they cut your, they are trying. Like, they didn't do it on purpose. And there's a lot of beginners out there who want to get better. So encouragement and everybody supporting each other in this industry is a big thing. But 99.9% of the time, the cuts are nothing. Like, they will go away, everybody will be fine.